Good afternoon once again to all the participants. We now move into the sixth session of our FDP and the second session of the day three, which focuses on one of the most decisive skill in a researcher's career, that is writing a strong and fundable research proposal. It is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker for this session, Dr. Guru R. Munawalli, Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, Walchand College of Engineering, Sangli. Dr. Munawalli is a seasoned academician with extensive experience in teaching, research, and guiding postgraduate and doctoral research. His academic journey reflects a strong commitment to quality research, proposal development, and mentoring young researchers. He has contributed significantly to research publication, project guidance, and academic leadership. His research had received over 900 citations. In this session, Dr. Munavalli will take us through the essential components of research proposal writing, including identifying a strong research problem, structuring objectives and methodology, aligning proposals with funding agency expectations, and presenting research ideas with clarity and impact. This session will provide practical insights into transforming research into well structured proposals that stand a higher chance of approval. Dr. Munavalli, we are delighted to have you with us today. I now request you to kindly take over the session.
Good afternoon, all the participants, organizers, whoever have joined online for this FDP. Before I start my talk on research proposal writing, so I would like to thank the organizers of the FDP, Savan College of Engineering, and the point of this program, the Sheikh. It happens to my student. Thanks for your invitation. I'll try to proceed to the session. The topic that is allotted to me is research proposal writing, uh, how to make it more effective, and to have some sharing on the experience that I have in writing the proposals and implementing it. So I organized my talk with these contents because of the academic career. Every academician has got a beginning of any topic delivery with the objectives. Let us have a arrangement of the talk in these ways. Objectives will discuss of the session, and at the end of the program, what you are going to learn from this session, outcomes. Then we'll have a look at what are the qualities of a good research proposal, and we'll also discuss the specific nature of the research proposal, because the different funding agencies have different kinds of structures. Then we'll discuss some sample formats or the structures followed by different agencies. And then we'll summarize in general what are the components of a typical structure of a research proposal. Then we'll go further deep into the components, discussing ins and outs of each of these components. Then we'll have some discussion on the probable reasons of acceptance of a proposal, or the reasons for the rejection. Then I'll demonstrate two proposals which have been presented, implemented successfully by our institute. Then we'll have concluding remarks, and then we'll end the session. So the session objectives are, so I'm going to provide you the information on the components of a typical research proposal. Then I will discuss the structure of the research proposal. It will be a kind of an introduction. So I hope, so not only the teachers are the participants here, some students are also the participant of this particular program. So in that sense, I need to deal with some basics as well as some deeper aspects of the research proposal. Then the time permits, we'll have an interaction with the participants on the challenges so that you may have faced or that you may be facing in writing research proposal. Then I will demonstrate an implemented research proposal. At the end of this particular session, a participant will be able to explain the components of a typical research proposal, and I can plan or outline a draft research proposal in the area of his or her study. Let us have a discussion with the basics. Whenever we undertake a research, and when the research is funded, that is more appreciated. So in that sense, conducting a research is not only the task of a researcher, but writing a proposal and getting the money for that conduct of research is very important. So in that sense, we need to understand what are the key features of a good quality research proposal. So I have listed down some of the points. So based on my experience, so normally every funding agency has got a list of the thrust areas or the emerging areas, and whatever we write, that should be correlated or it should be relevant to that particular thrust area. That is more important. And then once we identify the research area or the thrust area, we should have a good support, literature support. So because the literature is going to give you the proper guidance for the further study. So in that sense, a good quality proposal should have adequate background of a literature. And then that research proposal should go little bit deeper into the relative or applicable emerging or innovative technology. So because if you keep on conducting the research on the conventional technologies, so that is not attractive. And any emerging area, any innovative technology, so that is addressed. So that will add value to your research proposal. And more importantly, whenever a fund is being released, so there are certain restrictions on the funding agency also. So they don't have abundant funds. So they have got restricted funds and they need to distribute to the different researchers. So in that sense, if your research proposal is supported by a realistic budget, a balanced budget, properly justified, so then I've got a very good chance of getting a fund. So in that sense, one of the key feature of a qualitative research proposal is to prepare a realistic budget, and that budget should be a balanced one. And whatever idea that we propose as a research area, so that should be implementable. So otherwise, if you just propose some idea, so that is imaginary, that may not be feasible in the given circumstances, is not executable. And in that sense, the quality of that research proposal may be on a negative side. So in that sense, it should be an implementable and executable idea. And nowadays, the lot of literature is available, or lot of ideas are available at your fingertips. So because of the emergence of our AI tools and other Google resources available, an example of a chat GPT, etc. So when you simply give an idea to a chat GPT, it will come up with some kind of a idea. But that should not be the base of your research proposal. That's why in that sense, your content of the research proposal should not be having a lot of plagiarism. So if you are having a more plagiarism, and if it is generated by the EIA, one can easily identify that. And if your proposal is to be identified as a AI generated or some too much of a plagiarized content, then you have got a lot of problem with your proposals. In that sense, the minimum plagiarized content and not generated by the AI, so it can be a good quality of a research proposal. More importantly, anything that you write, any word that you write, that should have a logical justification. So, to summarize this feature, so your research proposal should be affordable in terms of money, it should be acceptable in terms of implementation, and it should be manageable in terms of its real life application. So if you follow these basic features, then you can come up with a good quality research proposal. And now, as you might have been given an idea of the different funding agencies, government agencies, NGOs, and many private organizations. A lot of funding agencies available. And when you just browse through the website of these funding agencies, every funding agency has got a different kind of a structure. and the structure or the format or the components of the research proposal, they are more specific to a particular funding agency. So in that sense, when you start writing a research proposal, first you should identify the funding agency, and then you should look at the structure which is pertinent or specific to that particular funding agency. So because every funding agency has got the different requirements. So requirement in terms of their constraints, requirement in terms of the funds available, the kind of prerequisite that require, the kind of the qualification of a principal investigator that they require. So requirements are different, and even the durations are also different. Some funding agencies have got 1 year projects, 2 year projects, and if you go to the BSc projects, they have got normally 3 years of duration. So duration also varies, and your quantum of work that you are going to propose in the research work depends on the duration. So in that sense, the duration is very important. The process is also specific to the different funding agencies, the process that they follow. Some of the funding agencies simply they call for the proposals, and based on your quality of the write-up, it is selected. And some of the funding agencies, they will call for the principal investigator to present the work. And based on the presentation and clarification and compliance, it will be sanctioned. So the process depends on the kind of agency that you are looking for. So that is why you should refer to the specific format, then you should prepare the proposal. And there are different provisions for the manpower. Some funding agencies, depending on the type of the project, so they will allow you to go for the junior research fellow, senior research fellow, project assistants, project attendants. So the manpower is also provided to you. So depending on the amount of money, the type of the project. And some of the funding agencies have got the restriction on the equipment. So if you were in the institute does not have that equipment, they will provide you. So if it is, it's not to be duplicated. Even if you have got a equipment in your college, if you again propose a similar equipment, they cannot be sanctioned. So like that, every funding agency has got some specificity, and you should look at the funding agency. Then you should prepare your research proposals. That is the meaning of specificity of a proposal. Let us have a look at some of the formats. Anyway, I'll be discussing each and every component of the structure in detail. So I'll just browse through what kind of formats the different agencies follow. So the format that is displayed on your screen, so it is the AICT Collaborative Research Scheme. And we were having a TechUp funding projects, so they followed this format. You have got a title, then you need to specify the area of the proposal. The areas are listed. Then you need to specify the name of the lab in your institute where you are going to conduct, and that lab lies under which department. And then you need to give the justification for the facilities that are available in your department, or you are going to propose. That is another component of this thing. And then that format requires objectives and relevance. Then you need to specify the literature survey, national level and international level. Then you should specify the expected outcome, and we will be discuss what is the meaning of outcome, all these things. I'm just giving a brief idea how the structure is going to be different from one agency to another agency, or one proposal to another proposal. So you need to highlight the research methodology, technical novelty and utility you need to specify. Then any possible patentability out of that research work you need to specify. And then the amount, the funding is based on the budget, non-recurring budget and recurring budget. So you need to propose equipment, specification, number, cost, justification, etc. Then the recurring budget, there are so many heads: travel, consumable, contingency, etc. So this is a kind of a format that is for the collaborative research scheme. And when you go to the same AICT funded projects with RPS, because RPS is more applicable to the faculty members who are working in an engineering college research promotion scheme. Every year, AICT distributes some funds to the different researchers to undertake the research. So normally, RPS program is for 2 years duration, 2 to 3 years of duration. So you look at the format is different here. So title, major area, and abstract, objectives, justification, relevance. Then the literature survey is divided into different categories: international status, national status, significance. Then does it have any commercial application or patentability, impact, social significance, and any other information. This is a typical format of a AICT RPS scheme. Then AICT RPS scheme also requires a duration of the project, what activities are going to undertake, what is the time required. Then again the budget estimate. So I just shown these formats just to have an idea of how a research, the structure of research proposal looks like. When you access the DST project, the format is something uh, different. So in general, whatever structure that you refer, so that structure has got some typical components, and these components are listed over here. Every project requires a project title, and I'll discuss it later. What are the qualities of a project title? How you should write the project title, and what is an example of a good title, and how a poor title can be written. So we'll discuss that. Then every research proposal should have a abstract. So abstract is basically the summary. When you read the abstract, you should get a feel of the research project. Then you should specify the objectives. That is one of the very important component of a research proposal writing. Then we should highlight the relevance, how that project is significant to different from different perspectives. Then literature survey is another component of any research writing. So it is not only giving the details of what has happened, but you should have a critical view of the status, because this is the one that is going to give you the direction for the further study. And once you complete this, you should give a detailed details of the your research proposal, the technical details, then the deliverables of the project, the outcomes of the project. I'm just listing out the components. We'll discuss that a little later. Then that structure should have a methodology. So line of action, how you are going to implement the objectives. Then you should give a work plan, duration for different activities, what are the milestones, and preferably should be given in a bar chart or a different kind of a flow diagram. And budget estimate is another part of a research proposal writing. In addition to that, if you want to give the any other information about the project, so you can give, and details of principal investigator. This is another important part, because every research work depends on the qualities of a principal investigator. Normally, the principal investigator should have a doctorate degree, so then he has got a edge in taking the project in the forward direction. In most of the funding agencies, the requirement is the principal investigator should be having a PhD degree or a qualification. We need to give the details of the principal investigator. Then normally all the research proposals are sanctioned by institute. Even if you are writing the proposal on your name, it is associated or affiliated to a college, and you should take the undertakings from the department, institutes, and the head of the department should endorse the, or he should take the responsibility of the effective and proper implementation of the project in his or her college. And then if the work is of a collaborative type, so if you are having some tie-up with the industry, there are certain projects which require some kind of a contribution by the industry. So proportionate contribution from the industry, proportionate contribution from the college, and proportionate contribution from the funding agency. So that is a collaborative project. So in that case, we need to get the consent from the respective industries or the different organizations. Then general information about the college and other we need to give. So details, undertaking, and consent. These are all some of the general information kind of a thing that you need to provide. But others, other than this, though they are very important, and we need to be very careful in writing these components. Now let us discuss these components one by one, and we'll have a detailed discussion on significance of the component, what are the key aspects of these components. So as you know, if you have referred the structure, the first part of the structure is the title. So actually, title is the one. So that is going to tell about the quality of your research proposal. There are certain requirements of writing a project title. Some of the agencies, they specify the number of words. So if you restrict your title to the number of words, so if you write that within that word, that is a more precise and concise or specific topic. When somebody reads the topic of any research proposal, he should be having an idea of what is going to be the content of that particular research proposal. So in that sense, it should be precise, concise, and more specific to the contents of the research proposal. And when you read a project title, that should reflect the contents, scope of the research, and the area on which the work is to be undertaken. It should be properly worded and incorporate the keywords. So these keywords are very important. So keywords reflect the contents of your research, and that is how you should identify the keywords of your project and use those keywords in writing the title. And that project title should be impactful and create a interest. So when you simply write a general title and you write a technical title, and that will be having a more impact on the evaluator, or the before you are before whom you are going to present your work. And that title should be a clear, it should give a clarity to your meaning. It should have a certain meaning. And typically when you formulate in a title, as I told you earlier, it should be in line with your requirements of the guideline given by the respective funding agencies. Normally, the normal process that we use in writing the title is you write some 4 or 5 titles and then choose a best out of it. So normal, I used to tell my students of VTech and MTech, when you write the project title, don't depend on only one title. So write many titles and then you select one appropriate title. And normally the title should not be written at the beginning of any proposal. The title should be written after the completion of the writing a proposal. So then only will be in a better position to suggest a better title. So some of the key features and the how to formulate the project title. Now let us have some examples of a poor project title and how that poor project title can convert it into a good title. So if you have taken 2 examples, the first is combined study of spray erection and VFCW for treatment of domestic wastewater. So there are 2 things in this particular title. One is spray aeration and VFCW. One should not use the abbreviation in the title. That is the first major flaw in this particular title. And the meaning of spray aeration is different and VFCW is different. So in that sense, this title does not give any kind of a idea, or it does not refer to a particular area of the study. So if you convert that title into a good title, it can be like this: studies on vertical flow spray rated constructed wetland for treatment of domestic wastewater. So this conveys the proper meaning. So you are applying that treatment system. As I belong to civil engineering, I have chosen a topic related to the civil engineering. It is a general, one can easily understand it. Vertical flow spray rated construct. So this refers to a particular system that is used for the treatment of a domestic wastewater. And you are going to conduct the studies on that. So compared to this title, so this title is more reflective in the research contents, that is more appropriate. So you can have an example of another one: process optimization for defluoridation from water by user tea powder, its activated carbon form using Taguchi method. So look at so many words here. And the meaning of this title is the one who has undertaken this project, he or she is going to apply a defluoridation. Defluoridation is basically fluoride removal from the water, and the tea powder, after it's being used, is used as a adsorbent here, and its carbon form is used. So instead of writing such a big topic, so we can write it this way: use of waste tea powder and its active carbon form in defluoridation. So now defluoridation is used for the water. There is no need to write specifically it for the water. And Taguchi method is a part of the process optimization. When you undertake such studies, by default you are going to use a research methodology, and a part of research methodology is a Taguchi method. So in that sense, a poor titles can be converted into a proper project titles. And then the next important part of the research proposal is the abstract. So actually, normally the quality of your research proposal is preliminarily evaluated by reading the abstract. So normally, whenever any proposal comes to me for the review, or any journal article comes to me for a review, first I read the abstract. And in the abstract, most of the things are clear. In the abstract, a well-written abstract should have a proper introduction. It should be mentioned with what the study is all about and what are the outcomes of that. It's for a journal paper. But when you are writing a research proposal, so that abstract should be a summary of your proposal. Summary in the sense, when you read it, you should understand what all about that research proposal is about. So what it is going to discuss and what is done there, and uh, it is a kind of a mini report of your research proposal. So that abstract should have a introduction. So introduction is basically a general discussion on the topic of your study or the broad area of your study, and then that should also refer to the previous work, and in brief it should refer to your proposed work, and then what methods are used to achieve the proposed work and what are the expected outcome. So actually, writing a journal paper is different. Writing a research proposal is different. The journal paper already have conducted the study, and the results are available with us, and we'll conclude based on our results and discussion. But in the research proposal, we need to predict, we need to imagine, we need to hypothesize what is the outcome of that particular research work. So in that sense, here we don't mention about the results and discussion conclusions. We're ending our abstract with the expected outcomes. So broad area, refer to the previous work, spell out the proposed work, spell out the methods to achieve it, and then expert outcomes can be highlighted. So if you incorporate these things in the abstract, so that will give the broad idea of what is proposed in the research proposal. I just given one example of a uh, abstract. So actually, the title of this particular research area is Automated Sequential Batch Reactor for Aerobic and Anaerobic Treatment of Domestic and Industrial Wastewater. The study is about applying a treatment system called as SBR, and that is applied for a domestic and industrial wastewater. So the abstract written for that is restricted to 200 words. So I have divided this abstract in three colors. One is a red color, it is a blue color, and a maroon color. The red color indicates the introduction. The title is introduced in a few sentences, one or two sentences. And the next sentences talk about what study is going to be performed. And the last three sentences will highlight what is the outcome of this particular work. So like that, any paragraph written for abstract should have few sentences which will give the introduction to the area of your study. Then you should highlight what you are going to do and what is the outcome of your study. So if you can incorporate all these components into the abstract, so once anybody reads this abstract, you will be in a position to understand what about the research, what is the research work that you are going to propose. Then the objectives. So objectives are one of the important components of the research proposal. So normally objectives should be self-explanatory. They should be implementable. They should be feasible. And in that sense, I have just identified some of the key aspects of a objective. The objective should be written in a clear, non-ambiguous statements reflecting the outcomes. So actually, outcomes are our major concerns in any research proposal. And to get those outcomes, our objects should be very clear and they should be non-ambiguous. You should not have any vague objectives written for any research proposal. They should be clear. And the objective should define the task and activities with action verbs. So the verbs that we use in the research proposal, so they should be very well selected. And if you use the proper action verbs, so then only you can identify the proper task or the activities. And these objectives should not be written in general. So they should have a technical value. They should have a technical quality associated with the and relevant to your proposal. So that is why somebody has created this word SMART. Actually, S stands for specific. Your object should be specific. Objective should be measurable. They should be achievable, relevant, and time bound. So every word has got a meaning. Specific in the sense that should be specific to your area of the study. So that should be measurable. Measurable in the sense when you write any objective, so that should be quantified. You should be assessed in terms of some quantity, some efficiency and performance kind of a thing. So that should be implementable. You should be able to achieve that particular objectives, and that object should be relevant to your area of the study. And more importantly, that object should be completed within a time frame. That should be a time bound. So that is why I told you, whenever you write a research proposal, you first look at the duration of the uh, duration of the research work specified by the funding agency. So accordingly, you should write your objective, because when you are deciding any objective or any task, that takes a lot of time, and your time available is less. You may not be able to complete that particular objective within the specified time frame. So in that sense, looking at these uh, qualities: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, you should write the objectives. And more importantly, all these objects should be in alignment with the study. So because if you write some irrelevant objectives, then that is not pertinent, that is not related to a study, then your proposal will have a negative idea. And it is a very good practice to write not too many objectives. So objectives should be restricted to 2 to 4. And you write many objectives, that may not be necessary for that kind of a study. And when you write too less objectives, that is also not appreciative. So 2 to 4 objectives is normally a good number for writing any research proposal. And I've just highlighted some of the examples of vague and ambiguous objectives, and how these objectives can be converted into a clear objective. So everybody knows a water treatment plant, that the water is purified and supplied for the public. Suppose you write an objective of any project like this: to evaluate the performance of water treatment plant. So this sentence is a vague sentence, because it not clearly mention what for you are going to assess the performance, evaluate the performance of water treatment plant. So if you write the same objective in another way: to evaluate the performance of water treatment plant for the removal of turbidity and pathogens. Because when you look at most of municipal water treatment plants, the main objective is to remove the turbidity and make the water pathogen free, make the water hygienic. So if you qualitatively assess the treatment plant for turbidity removal and pathogen removal, that is the performance that you are going to look at. But if your performance is something different, your objective can be like this: to evaluate the performance of water treatment plant for hydraulic efficiency. So I know that its performance for the water quality is good, but its performance for the hydraulic efficiency is not certain. So in that sense, you can do the performance evaluation for hydraulic efficiency. So this title does not give the clear meaning of that, but these objectives are more clear, more specific, and they will spell out what exactly you are going to do in that particular objectives. Similarly, to study existing water distribution system for a certain area, Vishrambag, Sangli. Again, it does not give any kind of a meaning. So if you make it more specific, more objective oriented, more specific, to study existing water distribution system of this area with respect to problems in distribution, condition of pipes, supply system, and adequacy for demand and pressure. So that will spell out what exactly you are going to target. So you can, they are more specific, they are more measurable, and they are achievable, and so they are very clear, because when any object is given to any fellow, he should be able to understand and he should be able to implement that. Such object you should write. The third example, to develop a packaged drinking water treatment system. Again, it is a vague sentence. But what for you are going to do that? Are you going to use a surface water or a groundwater? So that needs to be spelled out. So to develop a packaged drinking water treatment system for groundwater as a source, because the source is going to govern the kind of treatment system that you will provide for. So in that sense, instead of writing general system, you should mention for what it is required or what water is going to treat. Like that, you can avoid such vague objectives, and you can write a simple, clear, non-ambiguous objectives this way. Then relevance is another next part in the research proposal. So normally it is one of the ways of justifying your research area. So relevance, in the sense, relevance can be defined or discussed in many ways. So relevance with respect to the area of the proposal, as I shown in the earlier slides, the different areas listed by the different funding agencies, your topic of research or research proposal should be relevant to that particular thrust area. That is meaning of a relevance. And relevance is when you are undertaking any research work or research proposal, so that should contribute to existing knowledge, because there are a lot of literature, lot of work done on a particular topic. You should have a contribution to the existing. You should take that knowledge little further. So that is kind of relevance that you need to spell out in the this section. So contribution can be theoretically you can enhance, research wise you can enhance, and more importantly, in the relevance you can discuss significance of your work. What are the applications of the study area, and identify how it is beneficial to the different stakeholders, how it is beneficial to the society, how industry can be benefited by that, how academia can be benefited by that, or other the students are benefited by it, other researchers are benefited by it, or institute is benefited by this. So relevance is basically justified in terms of the area, contribution to existing knowledge, and different areas of application, and different target beneficiaries. So relevance need to be justified and discussed, articulated appropriately. And once you have got all these things, this is the heart of your research proposal, because normally research is the evolution. Somebody has done it something earlier, and we are going to take it forward. To take it forward, one should know what has happened in the past. To understand that, we need to look at the literature survey or the critical review of the literature. So actually, when I refer to the literature, that should be pertinent information, and that pertinent information should be from a reliable and authentic source. And the scholarly articles that are published in the good quality journals, you need to access. The first part of a literature survey is you should collect the relevant information from the scholarly articles, and for that, first you make a list of the journals which are concerned to the area of the study. And whenever you choose any journal, look at the quality of the journal. I think might be introduced with how to assess the quality of a good journal. Is it a Scopus index, peer reviewed, what is the impact factor, and so many things are there to assess the quality of a journal. First you make a list of the journals, and then or you can access the Science Direct. Science Direct will get a lot of good articles, and make the list of the journals, and then you search for the appropriate research articles. And don't only look at the research work in and around you. You should look at the research work not only at a local level, you should look at the research work at both national and international level. So what are the developments that have happened in the recent past, and you can take that as a base and do it. One of the simple hint to have a simple a good research, literature survey is you identify a recent article in which it is a kind of a literature survey, or it is a review article on a particular topic. So normally a review article published in a good journal will give the back data. So what has happened earlier, it is listed out, and then the specific articles you can choose and study those papers in detail, so that you will get a complete idea of what has happened in the past on that particular area. And then if there are any patents, because the patent search will get only the name of the patents, the details of patents may not be available, but at least you get an idea of what kind of articles are published as a patent. And you try to search for the novel research problems. So meaning of novelty is something to be looked at. Novelty is it is a new kind of idea, so it is not yet applied, not yet thought of, and not yet implemented, and it's not a repetition kind of a work that you are doing. So novel is basically the one that you are going to do as a new one. But every research may not be having a novelty touch, but you should try to bring in at least some little contribution to the novelty in that particular research. And once you do all these literature survey, critically review that and try to identify the research gaps, because unless and until you justify the research gaps, you will not be able to define the research objectives properly, and the evaluator of the funding project, these research proposals, may not be impressed, or he may not have a positive thought on your research proposals. In that sense, identify the research gaps. Basically, research gaps are those in the literature, some work is done to a certain level, and you need to take it to a further level, and to what level you are going to take. So those levels that you need to identify. That is basically a research gap. And then so after, there are so many research gaps you can identify, but you should limit yourself to a particular scope. Define the scope of the work and focus on what you want to contribute in the research proposal, and then also you give the validation of the earlier studies. By the end of this literature review, you should be able to get an idea of what has happened in the past, and what is the likely gap, and out of those gaps, how many gaps you are going to take it forward as the part of research proposals. This is one of the important sections one should write. So simply gathering the information and writing a paragraph of what has been done. So this work is done by this. That is not enough. You should analyze those all articles, and then you should write a critical review, and then identify what you are going to do it further. And after that, you should give the technical details of all your project. That is basically the core proposal or outline of the project. So in the core proposal, you should give the problem statement. So what problems you are going to deal with. Then give the complete technical details of your work. So your work can be experimental, analytical, or a combination of experimental and analytical. You should give the complete discussion details through proper articulation, proper write-up, proper schematic representation, properly highlighted diagrams, etc. And also core proposal should have the materials and methods. So how you are going to conduct that particular research work, experimentally or analytically. So this particular part of the so I'll just illustrate these in one of the sample project proposals. So basically, so this is the heart of your proposals. You should be technically as sound as possible. So if you lack the technicality or the proper wording, proper grammar, and proper representation, and logical sequence of writing, then your project may be devalued. So in that sense, this section should be written more effectively. And ultimately, we are going to look at the deliverables. So ultimately, normally when any research proposal is submitted to the funding agency, they look at its outcomes. So the other name of this deliverable is the project outcomes. So they will ask you a question: what is the use of your research proposal? So after conducting the research proposal, what you are going to get out of it? So that is a deliverable. So deliverable can be of these types. So it can be a new product. So you can come up with a report, a technical article. So that is contributing to the existing knowledge. So you can come up with a good research publication. So that can be another this thing, or you can develop a design criteria or a manual you can develop out of your study. That can be a document, that is kind of a product. Or you can have a different kind of a program, or you can develop a software. When your study is experimental, you can have a database of lot of results. So that database can be one of the important tool in the experimental research. Or you can come up with a hardware, you can come up with a prototype, you can have some kind of equipment being developed. So that is one of the deliverables, a new or a modified upgraded product. Or you can come up with a different kind of a process. So if you are going to generate a particular process for a planning, for a treatment system, for the management. Suppose when you have conducted a study on one of the treatment plants, and you can come up with a management plan. So you can give the operator a proper planning. You can prepare schedules. So that can be upgraded process. Or you can come up with a different kind of a system. When you are studying a particular system, so you can come with a different kind of a treatment system, or a system for implementing a particular activity. And then you can have a delivery in terms of the services. For example, when you are developing a software, so that software is useful for handling some of the problems in the society. That can be a service that you can think of. And when you are producing a particular manual, and that manual has got all SOPs, the standard operating procedures, that can be a service. So a deliverable can be in the form of feasibility. One of the important part of feasibility is the cost effectiveness. When you are producing a particular product with a minimum of a cost effectiveness, if you can demonstrate, that's a deliverable. So conducting a research work with the proper research product with a minimum cost, that can be feasibility. And that deliverable can be measurable outcomes. These are all the features of a deliverable. So we can demonstrate your research proposal in one of these deliverables or the outcomes. And normally when you define the objectives, so those objectives have to be achieved, and they will not be achieved simply by doing the work in a random way. So as and when comes to my mind, if I go on doing that work, it will not be working. So you should define a line of action, should define a line of implementation, should choose the proper methods of research, you should have a proper techniques and tools available, and they should be effectively utilized. So in that sense, you should define the proper methodology. So if your methodology is well justified and in alignment with your objectives, so then your proposal has got a value associated with that. So basically, methodology is the line of action to achieve the stated objectives. So if you have a different multi-objectives, every objective should have a different line of action, and that you should clearly spell it out. You should clearly mention that, and you should mention the systematic plan of conducting the study, the step-by-step procedure, what should be done first, then what you should do next, and how your experiments are going to be conducted. There are some of the research that require some kind of a data collection, survey you require. So what kind of survey tool that you are going to use, so that you should mention as a part of the data collection. And your research should be decided as experimental research, analytical research, or a combination of these two. That's it. That should be mentioned in the part of your methodology. And the techniques that you are going to adopt, the mathematical tools that you are going to use. For example, if your study requires some optimization tool, or if it requires some soft computing tool, so you need to identify that and you should study it properly. And after conducting the study, sometimes we need to do the analysis, we need to do the modeling, we need to do the simulation. So what kind of tools and techniques that you are going to use in the modeling and simulation, that you need to spell out in the methodology. So the methodology depends on what kind of research work you are going to do and what kind of mathematical tools that you are going to apply. So if you are in need of any a software that is available, so what software you are going to use in that particular study. So all this should be mentioned in the section of methodology. And duration and work plan. This is another important part of the structure of a research proposal. So you know the objectives, you know the technical content. So first you break down all your work into work elements or the activities, because all these activities, if you are specifying it appropriately, and if you uh, work out a plan for implementing these activities, completing these activities, then your project can be properly implemented within a given time frame. So that is how first step is you prepare a work breakdown structure by defining the work elements or the activities, and then we need to define or identify the duration for each activity, and then we need to identify certain milestones or the key events. So because activity will start with the event, it will end with the event, we need to identify the milestones. And then if it's a collaborative project, you can assign responsibilities, what the institute is going to do and what the collaborating agency is going to do. Otherwise it should be the sole responsibility of the institute and the principal investigator. And then we need to work out the interdependency or the interconnectivity between the activities, because some of the activities can be started simultaneously, some require precedence, some require some activity to be completed before you execute the another activity. The proper way of representing it by using a bar chart or activity duration chart. They represent the recognize the activities, decide the duration, identify the important stages, then you work out the dependency, then you prepare activity chart. One example of this can be shown here. List of activities. Literature survey can be activity. Then you are going to develop a certain product. Then you are conduct the studies. Then you are preparing for the conference publication. You preparing for the report writing or the journal. So you decide the time. For example, literature survey requires about 1 month of a time. Your actual performance requires about 5 months of a time. So arrange them accordingly. And some of the activities can be overlapping. So you can do the performance evaluation at the same time. Whatever study that you have conducted earlier, that can be used for preparing the conference presentations, etc. Like that, you can prepare a simple work plan and duration. So that will give the guideline or the direction for your further schedule. It is a kind of preparing a schedule. And budget is the key, because if your budget is not proper, budget is not appropriately justified, and nobody will sanction a research proposal, because the sanction of any research proposal depends on your budget estimates, how properly they are defined and how well they are justified, and it has got a lot of things to be looked at. So as you are aware that there are two kinds of budgets. One is the non-recurring budget that we normally call the initial investment or a capital budget, and the second is recurring budget. So recurring is basically it is a something like annual expenses that we incur. It is a one-time investment. It is a regular expenditure that we look at. So the non-recurring or capital estimates, we normally propose the equipment, machineries, the material supply, tools, accessories, any testing kit, software, etc. Any capital items can be purchased under the non-recurring budget. In the recurring budget, you can use the money for laboratory setups, for manufacturing some prototypes, laboratory testing work, chemical, etc. Then, if you are undertaking some field testing or a survey, you can spend the money towards that. When you are presenting a paper in a conference, the travel expenses can be covered on the recurring. So if you are hiring some manpower, so if the funding agency have a provision for hiring the manpower, the salary of the research associate assistant can be a part of this. Or you can have a consumables, contingency, or stationery. That is a part of your recurring expenses. And when you prepare the budget estimates, these are the key points that one should look at. It should be realistic as I told earlier, realistic in the sense your budget should not be too high, should not be too low. So if you are proposing a certain equipment, if its cost is say 1 unit, and if you are proposing 2 units, that is not a realistic budget. So all your budget should be based on the budgetary quotations. You should get a quotation from the manufacturer or some good companies, and you can refer those budgetary quotations for preparing your budget, especially for the purchase of the non-recurring items like equipment. And then your budget requirement should be with reference to your project objectives. So if you are purchasing a equipment and that is nowhere related to your project objectives, then it is not a proper part of your budget. So in that sense, the equipment or the components that you require, budget component, that should be related to your project objectives. That is very important. And normally you propose equipment that is not there in your institute. So normally the funding agencies are reluctant to give the same equipment that is already with you in the department or the college. So try to propose a new equipment that is not present in your institute, and accordingly you should reframe your objectives. And your budget should not be too optimistic or too pessimistic. The meaning of too optimistic is it not be too high, too pessimistic means it not be too low. It should have balanced a budget that should right. And more importantly, whatever you suggest, suppose if I require X equipment, so that X equipment, why you require that, what is the need of that, and how that is in line with your project objectives, how it is going to help in your research work. So all these you need to justify appropriately. So if you follow these guidelines, then you can come up with a good budget estimate. And typically when you look at the different research proposals, whatever research proposal that we send, it may not be 100% that it gets sanctioned. There are certain reasons for that, why your proposals are not accepted or not, or they are rejected. These are some of the common reasons. One of them is it is irrelevant. So it is not in line with your their study area or thrust area. So it does not fall under the purview of those thrust areas defined by the this. That's why you make sure that whatever topic that you choose, so that should be relevant to the areas proposed or the focused by the funding agency. So that is how it's not be weak, poor, or irrelevant. So if it is that, then your straight away in the first stage itself your proposal will be rejected. Then your research objectives are not defined based on the literature support. So you have simply written some objectives, so they are no way concerned with the literature support. So you have written literature survey something else, and you identify the research gaps something else, and you are writing objectives differently. So if your research proposal does not have the proper literature support, national level and international level, and if you are not referred to the peer-reviewed Scopus index journals, and if your literature references are not of good quality, then you have got a possibility of your proposal can be getting rejected. And your research proposal does not contribute to much about the work that has been done earlier. It is a repetition kind of a work. So whatever somebody has done the work in X place, and you are doing the same work in Y place, that is not a contribution. Or you are simply repeating the study with the same objectives, that is not a contribution. So if your proposal is not going to contribute significantly to the technical existing technical knowledge or existing research work, then you have got a more chance of rejection. And if your research gaps are not properly identified, then so actually this is the one that is going to be helping you to define the proper research objectives. So gaps should be identified. If your research gaps are very poor, then research proposal may not be appropriate. And even though your topic is good, then your research literature is good, you identify the research gaps, but your objective defined are not appropriate. They are ill-defined objectives, so they don't give proper clarity. Then your proposal may have a negative impression. And if you have failed to identify the significant deliverables, if you are not justifying the application of your research work, so then it may be possible that your project may not be that appealing. And this is another important thing. Even your ideas are better, you have got a very good literature background, etc. But your write-up is of a poor quality. Language is not proper, grammar is not proper, and your wordings are not appropriately chosen. So then that issue may also create some negative impression on the quality of the research proposal. And to make this more this thing, there are a lot of tools available in the net. Grammarly software you can make use of. That will improve your English grammar. And there are certain agencies that will make the proper English write-up for you. So you can refer to such and make the write-up grammatically and language-wise appropriate. And try to avoid the repetition. See, if that's I told you earlier, if some work is already done and if you are repeating the work, then that repetition is reflected in your plagiarism. So if your plagiarized contents are more, then your rejection rates are higher. And the budget you have justified, budget you have given, but it is not a proper documentary support or budgetary quotations are available with you. It is not justified. So then your project may be on the rejection path. And no correlation between the objective and methods. You write objectives different and do the line of action different. Then that no proper correlation will make your article not that good. And normally every research post should undergo a plagiarized check. So if your plagiarism is too high, because the plagiarism is going to be a part of your this thing, 5%, 10% going bound to come because you are referring the literature. But if it is more than 5%, 10%, it indicates that you have copied the content from some other source. So in that sense, be cautious about the plagiarism check. Now let us have a look at some of the research proposals so that have been actually sanctioned and implemented. So this is a research proposal submitted to the Department of Science and Technology under a water treatment initiative scheme. So this is actual proposal that was submitted and got sanctioned. It was implemented for about 3.5 years, and a good product was developed out of this thing. This is the content. I'm just demonstrating, illustrating the contents of actual proposal. There are the contents: proposal for the executive summary, core proposal, biodata of principal investigator and co-PI, budget estimates, undertaking from the investigator, and endorsement from the head of the institution. These are the is a index of the proposal. And then the first is the proper executive summary. So if you read the executive summary, it will give what all about and what is the amount and other thing. So the title, look at the title here: integrated domestic wastewater treatment system with multi-species and dual media constructed wetland. So it will reflect everything. The project is on the treatment of the domestic wastewater, and we are using a constructed wetland as a treatment system. In the constructed wetland, you have got the multi-species and dual media. So the title itself is highlighting some new thing is being done in this particular research work. The project cost sanctioned was about 40 to 40.24 lakhs, 3 years of a duration, and myself being the principal investigator. This is implemented at Walchand College, and there was no collaborator for this project, so it's not applicable. And objectives are defined. So these objectives clearly mention what we are going to do in that particular area. Two objectives. So I have not defined too many objectives. I have defined only two objectives. These two objectives are sufficient to cover the entire this thing. And then in brief, we need to give the methodology as a part of executive summary. So in the methodology, so if you read the methodology, it will give a clear idea of what is all about, what is done, and what is expected outcome of this thing. And then the deliverables are also mentioned here. So it is a product. Then the process is developed, and the system is a whole a new integrated operated system. So this is the first part of the this thing, proposal for the executive summary, and then it follows the financial requirements. So the financial requirement. So this project has got a facility of taking a manpower, junior research fellow, and project assistant. So you need to, it is a fixed cost, 12,000 per month for JRF and 5,000 for the project assistant. So total amount for that. Then permanent equipment. So these equipments proposed are other than what we have in our institute. Like that, you need to be a list of the permanent equipment. And then this project has got some experimental setup also. We have actually constructed a treatment system. Money for that was sanctioned. Then consumables, travel, contingency, and overhead. Overhead is basically electricity and water and other charges. Like that, the total amount is about 40.24. And it is a 100% control over the DST, about 40 lakhs. So the first two pages have given the executive summary and what is the financial requirements involved in the project. And then the core proposal is this title should give the name of the PI, name of the co-PI, and then a target beneficiary. Look at the beneficiary here. When this treatment system is developed, so all the people who are residing in the urban locality are benefited by this. Domestic establishments are benefited by this. Rural population is benefited by this. Like that, you need to mention the list of the beneficiaries. Then objectives. So this is the key part, critical view of the literature status. So national status review has been conducted by referring the literature. International status of the research area proposed is discussed, and all the papers are referred of a good impact factor journals. And then the references are to be listed out here, what references you have referred. And then the outline of the project. So referring the literature, objectives, what actually you are going to do. So that is spelled out here. And what is actually your product looks like. So that you need to give the complete technical details of your project work. So two alternatives have been suggested. This is how it should be, the complete technical detail of the your research work. These are the two products that we have developed. And then these are the 5 deliverables that we propose. Integrated treatment system is developed, and we have used different processes of the wastewater treatment. And then so when you combine these, the new system has come up in the design. And then so you can make use of the software for analyzing the results, and the feasibility study is done in terms of application and cost effectiveness. And the methodology of conducting the study is clearly spelled out here. So what kind of operating parameters that you are going to vary. Then this is how that duration and work plan is divided. So different activities are identified, and different milestones are identified, and the target months are identified, and in those milestones different work elements are identified, and who is responsible for that is identified. So like that the milestone with work elements are identified, and then based on that a work plan is prepared for 36 months, 3 years, how these activities can be implemented. And then we need to give the name of the 5 experts. So it doesn't mean that the name that you are given here, they will come as a reviewer. So it is only for a reference. The different people will be there in the assessing panel, but as a form you need to give that. And you need to propose any other information related to the project work. Then you need to give the biodata of the principal investigator. This matters the most, because if the PI is having a good research experience, good publications, qualification, then that is going to be having a impact on the uh, acceptance of the projects. So the publication you need to list down. Then conference presentations of the PI you need to list down. This all assess the quality of your any patents published by the PI, books published by the PI, then any sponsored research projects he has handled earlier. So that you need to mention his experience in conducting or handling the consultancy projects. So that you need to specify. Similarly, you should give the details for the co-PI if any. And then the budget estimates, the earlier page was having only summary of that. But here you need to give the total breakup of the budget in the 3 years, the manpower requirement, equipment requirement, and other. You should divide that into the 3 years. Consumables, you total consumer required is 5 lakhs. How you are going to use them? In the first year, 1 lakh, second year 2 lakh, third year 2 lakh, because as the project progresses you require the more consumables required. Like that you need to justify that. So travel will not come in the first year, the travel will come in the later years, because once your study is progressing, you can prepare a paper, then you can go for the presentation. But the contingency also required will be more in the latter half of your this thing. So like that, when you give the breakup of these amounts, that should be logical, and that should be this thing. And look at this. So most of your equipment are purchased in the first year itself, because you need the equipment for starting your work. So 12 and 8 they are proposed in the first year of your study itself. Like that, you should have a proper realistic budget estimate. And then for the manpower, so there is a fixed amount, number of persons, number of PAs, that is fixed. And especially for procuring the permanent equipment, you need to actually specify the name of the equipment, whether it is a foreign, what is the make of that, then what is its cost, and you should actually attach a quotation received from the manufacturer. So that will justify your cost. Otherwise, if you are proposing 2 lakh, your actual cost is 1 lakh, and if it is mismatching, then it will not be appropriate of doing it. So for every equipment, one need to have a proper this thing. And other than that, you need to mention what is available with you, what is available in your institute or a college, that you need to specify. So that will make clear that these instruments you don't have in your institute, you are adding a facility other than what is available at your institute. So like that, you can give the details of the consumables. Domestic travel, you can justify why you require a domestic travel, why you require the consumables. For everything, you need to look at the contingency. So it is for a conveyance allowance, fuel charges, stationery, paper, printer, cartridge, etc. You should specify it. And then finally, you should give the details of the bank account of the institute, so that the money can be transferred to that. And this is the some formal undertakings that we need to submit, undertaking from the investigator, and then it should be endorsed by the head of the institution. So like that, you can complete the proposal. But once the proposal is sanctioned, implemented, every year you need to submit a utilization certificate. So one utilization certificate for the non-recurring items, you need to clearly spell it out. So what is the balance available, what is the interest earned on the money, and how much you have spent that money in that particular year, expenditure incurred, and how much money is available. So this is the UC at the end of the first year. The first year itself, most of the money is consumed for the purchase. In that, the remaining balance is very less, and you should properly certified and submitted to the DST authorities. Similarly, you need to provide a UC for the recurring item, the consumables and other thing. The same unspent balance of the previous year, interest, and then what is the grant received in that particular year, and then available funds, and the closing balance. Sometimes the money is not released at once, so the money is released every year. So if you are getting a grant in that particular year, so that grant has to be added over here, and then you can deduct that, and you can get the closing balance. And then once all your project work is complete, you need to submit the progress report every year. And there's a format for submitting the progress report, annual progress report. These are the contents of the progress report: title, investigator name, date of commencement, date of completion, then the progress report number, what were your objectives, and how these objectives were achieved in that particular review period. For example, when you are giving a progress report for a particular X year, so in that year, what activity pertaining to which objective have been completed, and you should give the evidence of those completed these things. You should give the photographic evidence of the completed items, and actually you should go there and you should present all your these are the photographic views. And then any special achievement that you have done in that particular year, so you should clearly mention it. And then any publication that you have got in those years, you should specify them, whether you have submitted any proposal article for a journal or is it published, etc. So that you need to write. And any presentations, any conference proceeding that you attended, that you need to list out. So the funding agency will not leave you alone. So they should, they will try to get as much information as possible what you have done. And any other achievements that you have, you need to list out those achievements. And then a financial status you should provide, how much money was sanctioned, how much is uh, remaining, and other things. And then normally when you go for a presentation, they will give some comments. So what was the comment given in the earlier review meeting and what action you have taken, so that you need to specify. So list of the comments that were given and the list of the action taken that you have done. So all these things you should specify. So like that, you should submit the progress report. And once your project is completed, you are supposed to submit a project completion report. So that will be right from the start. So actually, when you refer this project work, it started in 2016 and completed in 2020. So all those details you should give over here. The summary report, objectives, whether it is fully achieved or not, deliverables, what you committed and achieved or not, then any special benefits that you got out of this project, and a list of publications. So this actually evaluates the success rate of your project work. How many publications you have got, and then how many papers you have presented in the conferences. More interestingly, we have got lot many papers and lot many conference proceedings for this particular DST funded project. The list is too large. And then some papers have got the best paper awards as well, that you need to list down. And any linkages that you developed while implementing this project, so that you need to spell out. And you should mention the name of the people who work for the project work. And a summary of significant scientific and technology achievements that need to spell out. And then you should give the financial project budget, funds allocated, expenditure incurred, what is the balance. So if you have got a excess amount, that you need to return it, or any amount that you have spent more, that should be incurred by the institute. Normally, any interest earned should not be used by the institute, that should be returned, and that we returned back to the DST. So like that, capital expenditure, recurring expenditure, you need to specify. And finally, suggestions for the utilization of the project outcome, that we need to spell out. So like that is the summary part A, the comprehensive report. So what has been actually achieved, that you need to provide as a detail. So what was your plan? How did you conduct it, and how did you complete it? So all these reports indicate that whenever a research proposal is being undertaken, so the different funding agencies have got a check on you. So you need to completely satisfy the requirements, and you should regularly submit the project reports and other thing. There is another proposal on the rainwater harvesting. So I'll just browse through first. And it is a simple 1-year research promotion scheme. The project summary you have to give, objectives you have to mention, you have to give the justification of the proposal, relevance you have to highlight, and then significance of the work that you need to highlight, and then give the duration. It is a 1-year project. You don't have much of a equipment that you propose, cost. So this was a RPS project implemented in 2011-12. And to conclude, let us summarize the discussion in this session. What we discussed. One should study the process related to the funding agency, then choose an appropriate area, then collect relevant and adequate literature, identify the gaps, define the proper objectives related to the gaps, and justify your proposal with proper deliverables, applicable methods, and balance the budget. And complete the project, take a printout of that, read it. So don't read the project only on the screen, read the project on a hard copy and submit it to the funding agency, and be optimistic for the acceptance of the proposal, but don't get dejected. If it is rejected, accept and move forward with a positive intent, because the failures are the success stones of any good happening. So in that sense, if the proposal is rejected, don't get disheartened, and try to improve upon that, accept whatever is the decision, and then move forward with a positive intent. So if you follow this logic, I hope we'll come up with a good research proposal. So I referred AICT site and DST. So I should thank the DST for providing the support for about 40 lakh to implement a good research work in the wastewater treatment. So I thank all the audience for your patience hearing. So you have got any questions, any queries, you can interact with me. Thank you.
Yes, I request all the participants who have any query and questions, please go ahead and ask the questions. You can also write the questions. Yes, please.
Sir, what is the general timeline required for completion? Suppose if you submit a proposal, how much time generally it will take to get the confirmation?
Normally, I think there are some proposals, they are invited throughout the year. And there are some proposals, there were some timeline. So if it is a throughout the year proposal, so they have got the meetings, I think once in a year or twice in a year. I think so that depends on the kind of the project they float. Otherwise, if it is a deadline is there, then I think within 3 months that process will be completed, because our experience shows that for DST we submitted the proposal within 2 or 3 months it got sanctioned.
Okay.
You can also write the questions in the chat box. We have some questions. I will one by one ask those questions, sir. One question says that, can contractual faculty in a private university be a co-PI?
I think it's not the case, because most of the funding agencies require a regular faculty members to be the PI or co-PIs. That is the major hindrance for the contractual faculty.
Next question we have is,
at institute level, the college may give that assignment, but with the funding agency, the name will be of a regular faculty.
okay. And sir, one more question we have. How is the distribution of sanction amount among PI, co-PI, and the institute?
No, it is not the amount PI and co-PI don't get financially benefited here. So there is no provision of any a monthly allowance or some kind of money to the PI and this thing. So it is for the research work.
One
Because we
question is,
executed the DST project, it was a 40
yes,
lakh, but not a single paisa was given to the PI or a co-PI.
one more question we have, what will happen if the actual amount spent on the project is more than the sanctioned amount?
Then the institute has to spend the extra amount because they will not increase the amount. They may extend the duration, but the amount is not sanctioned extra, because for our case, we could not complete the project in 3 years. We sought about 3 months of extension. The time was extended, but the extra amount that we spent is not given by this thing. We should spend within the limit. That's why when you prepare the budget, you should be cautious. Prepare more budget, justified, and the excess amount you can return it back. But when you spend more amount, then you need to spend from your institute pocket.
We have one more question. For a rainwater harvesting project proposal, which section carries the maximum weight during evaluation? One of the participants has asked this.
Is the technicality of your project work, because most of the rainwater harvesting systems, so they are using the roof water connected and treated. But when you, while collecting itself, you treat the rainwater and collect it. That is a novel idea. So the rainwater harvesting proposal got sanctioned because our concept was not to collect and treat. Our concept was to treat and collect. The technicality values more.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the participant side? If yes, please go ahead. Yeah, for conclusion, I will hand over the session to Dr. Ishaq Sheikh. Please, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kuram. So I am privileged to summarize the session of my MTech guide, Dr. Gurum Noli, sir. So sir has given us the details related to features of the research proposal. What are the different features that we need to look for? What is the specificity of the proposals? He has demonstrated sample formats of the proposals. Then format varies with the, we'll come to know that the format for different agencies is different. Then components of a research proposal, what are the different components that we need to consider? And what are the do's and don'ts for the research component, means for each, suppose for title, he has explained. So what are the do's and don'ts for title? Likewise for abstract, each of the components he has gone through details. That means what things we need to include, and while writing the proposal or a component of a proposal, what things we should avoid, that also he has explained. Then he has explained the difference between research proposal and research paper. There is difference between writing a research proposal and research paper. Then sequence of writing the different components of a research proposal. The sequence which we need to follow. As he has said, don't write the title at the beginning. We need to write the title at the end of the session or end of the proposal. So that way he has explained, and at the end he has given an example of how to write a proposal from his own proposal, which has been sanctioned by DST. So thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time and content which you have delivered. Actually, I was also not aware about much of the things. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
With this, I would like to conclude the session. And for participant, I would like to mention that tomorrow there will not be any session. The session will be on the 26th morning only. And the link for the feedback for this particular session will be shared on the WhatsApp group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, once again.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.